I went over to Ben Carson's website on Saturday and I signed up. And you know, many of you know this trick, but if you don't, let me. This is how you do it. I was curious what Ben Carson is going to do with my email address and my postal address, for that matter, because 69% of the money that he raises is spent to raise more money. Now, either that means he is trying to build as huge a database as possible for when he's not president, but he's just, you know, a 60-something hustler. And, you know, like most of the other guys running for president as Republicans, they're really running to increase their brand awareness. Donald Trump's brand has gone up substantially. Ben Carson's brand has gone up. Now, if it turns out that he really was not a violent psychopath when he was young, as he has asserted he was, but Jesus saved him. If it turns out he wasn't a violent psychopath, that's probably going to hurt his brand. He says he grew up in an impoverished neighborhood. No, it turns out he grew up in a relatively middle-class black neighborhood. He says he once saved white students from a race riot. It turns out you can't find that. He said he had nothing to do with Manitech's marketing. No, you can see the whole 3-minute commercial he cut where he talked about Manitech by name. He said Joseph built the pyramids to store grain. No, not so much. This from a interesting graphic up at the top of Democratic Underground right now. He said America today is very much like Nazi Germany. No, sorry, Ben. He said that Obamacare is the worst thing to happen to this country since slavery. You know, I wasn't there for the Civil War, but I understand 600,000 plus people died. I mean, that's Obamacare is preventing people from dying. In fact, we've already seen in those states that have adopted an expansion of Medicaid, the blue states, death rates are going down. What a surprise. People have access to health care. Ben Carson said that women who have abortions are as bad as slave owners. I don't think most women would agree with that. He says he was once held up at gunpoint at a Popeyes. Turns out there's no police record of any Popeyes being robbed anywhere near that town at that time at all. He just made it up. He was offered a scholarship to West Point. No, he wasn't. He says he was called the most honest student in his class in a psychology class. No, that was actually from a joke paper. Seriously, a satire paper. Made that up about that time, and Ben Carson apparently read it and adopted it as part of his personal story. It's bizarre. So anyhow, I signed up for Ben Carson's campaign, and the trick I was telling you is when you sign up, sign your name in a particular way so that you can track what goes on. You know, they asked for my first name, and I said my first name is Thom from Ben Carson, and my last name is Hartmann Ben Carson. And, I gave them my business address, and I gave them a phony phone number because the last thing I'm going to do is give anybody my phone number. And these are, I typically do this, by the way, when I sign up for political campaigns, just to see where. So if I start getting, emails from United Healthcare or Acme Widget Company or whatever, that are addressed to Thom from Ben Carson, Hartmann Ben Carson, I will know where it came from. So anyhow, I got this thing in email from him. With your financial support, donate today. Please give us money. And he said, with your help and millions of other Americans who've already signed up to be part of the Carson America campaign, we can make this happen. Can you donate $25 to make sure your voice is heard? Right. Here's their agenda. Number 1, balance our budget. We must ratify a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. The federal budget has been in deficit since the Revolutionary War, with one exception. I think it was 1834. I'd have to go back and look at the exact year, but there was a period of a few years where President Andrew Jackson, who had campaigned against the Second National Bank of the United States, shut down the bank and was opposed to the government having any debt. He paid off the national debt. Completely paid it off for several years. And you know what happened? We went into the worst depression in the history of our country. It was worse than the Depression of 1929 to 1930, whatever. It's just, wasn't as well documented as such back then because we didn't have like national newspapers in 1834. So, but you can go back and look at the history of it. It was massive. Why? Because there was no place investors could put their money that they knew was safe. You need a federal debt because people want to invest in things that are going to produce returns and, a return on their investment, interest that they know is not going to go away. So anyhow, his first thing is balance our budget. Yes, let's repeat the mistake of Andrew Jackson. His second, protecting our children. For primary and secondary education, the bedrock concept that has always guided us has been local control. Communities fund and manage school systems. Any attempt by faceless federal bureaucrats to take over our local schools must be defeated. Yes, if you're born into a poor community, you should have a crappy school. And if you're born into a rich community, hey, you're going to get well educated and you're going to get richer. Sounds right? Yeah. And then finally says, solving the healthcare problem. Obamacare is a looming disaster. We don't need the monstrosity of a $1.2 trillion Affordable Care Act. Even after it's fully implemented for 10 years, 23 million people still won't have any health insurance. He fails to tell you that that's because in 20 states, Republicans refuse to expand Obamacare to include Medicaid and cover people. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.